Consciousness is the continual observation of the self. It is the I am presence. The brain is an organic representation and repository of the spiritual consciousness you have become. When you are not in a living embodiment, you are pure consciousness. This is important to understand because you are not just one or the other. You currently are both. Sigmund Freud's accepted model, the conscious, preconscious, and unconscious mind, is generally agreed upon as today's most efficient method of differentiating these levels of awareness. However, many agree there are more than just the three states, and these are explained in this way. During the spiritual awakening, you experience more than just the three Freud defines. There are 4 divisions you explore during your awakening, and you discover the spiritual essence of consciousness. These 4 states are often gifted or earned through the exploration of the subconscious mind. Continual practices of spiritual arts, such as meditation, prayer, or mindfulness, are the common cause of these states of experience. However, sometimes these states appear through certain happenings in life, such as epiphanies or sudden realizations. Transcendental consciousness is the first of the 4. It is the silencing of the senses while being completely conscious. The ability to silence the chaos of all senses and the overwhelming clamor of the mind is a powerful ability in the pursuit of enlightenment. By quieting all the senses of the body and mind, you are free to connect, undisturbed with the spirit. Cosmic consciousness is the next. This state is often considered the disassociation of the ego. You begin to realize that what you thought was your being is not. You realize that you are much bigger than what you have, do, think, or play in the world. You start to connect with the eternal being within you. The things you previously cared so much about start to fade away, along with the biggest problems you thought you had. The 3rd level is God consciousness. This state of being is described in one word: bliss. You begin to feel a deep warmth and connection with everything around you as you take on this consciousness. Your filter, your perception through joy and love. And as your heart is full and open, your mind is the glowing light, and you see only the pure radiation of love through every person and thing in the world. The 4th and final is unity consciousness. You see all as one, and there is no longer you, but rather an us. There once was separation of self, us, them, and it. But now you can only see the one energy flowing in different forms. You have found a complete association with everything. You realize there is only one consciousness. Oh yeah, it's that time again, you guys. It's Friday night, and it's time to feed your mind and grow your heart. Welcome everyone to Andromeda 7. It's good to have you all with us. Did everybody have a great week this week? Did you enjoy yourselves? Was life good? I hope so. Tonight we have an enlightening show for you, and we're talking about linking the levels of consciousness. And before we get started, please feel free to like, share, subscribe. It lets YouTube know that people love us, and those likes feed the algorithms, and that helps us grow the channel. So that would be wonderful if you could do that. We would appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel or you're returning, welcome back. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's introduce the illustrious panel. And I promise tonight, Teresa, I will not butcher your name.
Can you check and see if Nick is there? He says he's in the waiting room.
He's not in my waiting room, I can tell you that. So you might want to check the link. But to my left is Teresa D'Antone, my
Hi,
beloved
everybody.
production manager and co-host. I'm
Good to see
Laurie
you all.
Cross. I'm the executive producer and host of the show. Sophia, our resident medium and all-around cool chick. Dalibor M. Suki, our resident professor. Love having you with us, Dalibor. Thank you so much for showing up every week.
Pleasure to be
We
here.
greatly appreciate you. And of course, Grandpa Brian over there in the lower right. How are you, Grandpa Brian? Things going well
Oh,
for
I
you?
am wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. I'll go ahead and say hi to everybody in chat. And before I do that, I need a couple of little clicky clicks. Cool. All right, let's see who's joined us tonight. Hi, Mary Wins. Good to have you with us. Thanks for being a moderator tonight and watching and enjoying the show. We love seeing you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, Lucky Stone. Good to have you with us. I love your comment from last week. Be a chum and hit hit the like. I love that. That was cute. Let's see, Lady Creations. Good to have you with us as well. Thanks for joining us, Scotty Boy. Always a pleasure. Cheers. Let's see, who else do we have? We kind of trickle in here a little bit. Loretta Enigma, good to have you with us. Boy, you had some great comments last week. I really enjoyed that. So thank you for commenting and being in the chat. We greatly appreciate you. Always. Beloved Abstract, how are you, kind sir? Good to see you. Cheers to you as well. Let's see, what else we got here? Professor Bauer, always a pleasure to have you. It's all
Hey.
consciousness, the knower and the known, which inhabit and animate the energy of the frequencies of reality.
Yeah.
You said it. You said it. Doesn't he have a show coming up on Sunday, Teresa? Did you mention
Sunday.
that?
Yes, he does. He does have
Okay.
a show on Sunday. It's with hang on a second, I have it right here. I'm trying to help
Okay.
Nick get in.
No worries. It maybe it's up to you,
It's
Mary.
on
If
the
you can pop his link in there, that'd be great.
it's on Piercing the Veil. He's joining up
Okay.
with Gerald Fountain and
Mm-hmm.
uncovering the secrets of vibrations and frequencies.
Sweet.
And
Sweet.
it's at 6 p.m. on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter and Rumble.
All
So
right.
6 p.m. Central on Facebook. But
Wonderful.
he's got another 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time,
Mm-hmm.
5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 4
Okay.
p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There
Great.
you go.
Yeah. If you have an opportunity to check it out, absolutely go over there and give it a look for sure. But
He
thank you
he's
for
gonna
being
get
here tonight.
he's gonna get a little deeper into frequency and vibration. So
Nice, nice, nice. It is. It's all about frequency and vibration. Definitely.
yeah,
I thought it was interesting because Buddha talks about consciousness as a continuing,
Nick.
like a stream of water. It's just continuous, always flowing, always moving. Um, pretty to an infinite degree, which is amazing to think that we're infinite beings when everyone thinks that they're limiting their belief as to this human experience. And you know what, you guys, I've changed my paradigm here in the last couple of days. I used to think I was a spirit having a human experience. Now I'm a spiritual being having a spiritual experience. So yeah, changed my little paradigm there.
Hmm.
Cool, cool. So of course, as I like to do, we do 3 questions for the panel, and then we discuss the topic. But there was one thing I kind of wanted to got Nick. Hi, Nick.
Yay,
There's
there
one
we
thing
go.
I wanted to talk about real quick was there's this is interesting. If you look at this graph here, the conscious mind is 12% of your brain power, what you're using. And that conscious mind is only 12%. This analyzes, thinks, and plans short term memory. But the 88% of your mind is the subconscious mind, and that's the long term memory, the emotions and feelings, the habits, relationships, patterns, addictions, involuntary functions, creativity, development stages, and spiritual connection and intuition. And I just thought this was really fascinating because 88%, you're not really, I mean, you're kind of on autopilot on some of it, and the other parts are just very limiting. but I thought it was fascinating. The other one that I came across was this one, and it's the 7 levels of consciousness. Teresa, let's see
There
if I
we
can
go. Here
get
we
that up.
go,
Yep.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. All right. So
Yep.
this is interesting. So there's 7 levels, and there's levels of personal, organizational, and community and society levels. So, for example, in the first part of your life, you're learning really how to survive and that you don't have enough. And then the next level is that relationship level where you're not feeling loved enough. You're searching for that love that's outside of you. And then that third level, self-esteem, and that's the I am not enough, and that leads to the power, authority, and status seeking. And then you get into that fourth level transformation, letting go of those fears. The fifth is the internal cohesion. So you're finding purpose, integrity, honesty, authenticity, passion, enthusiasm, creativity, humor, and fun. And six, you're making a difference in the world. You're living your purpose. You've got empathy. You have alliances, intuition. You're mentoring and focusing on well being, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And seven, you become the service. You're being your purpose, your compassion, humanity, forgiveness, caring, and uh, yeah, you're caring for humanity and the planet. You're just in service of others and everything that's going on around you. Sorry, it's really hard to read on my screen here. So, but anyway, I thought that was all very interesting. Hi, Nick. Good to have you with us. Is Jasmine joining you tonight? There she is.
There she is.
You guys are on mute, just so you know. Awesome. All right, let's get this going
Very
on.
cool.
So,
We got
so
some folks to say hi to. Woo!
yes, let's do. No, we've already done
Right.
that. You were busy.
Yeah, sorry.
Rolling in.
You
Well,
were
hi
busy,
everybody.
little
Yeah.
G. Yep,
Hey,
say hello.
guys.
All right. Well, you know what? Tonight, let's. I want to start with. Let's start with Grandpa Brian, and I'll make my way up. Um, so the first question on this consciousness stuff is, what are your personal thoughts about consciousness? What are your personal thoughts about your own personal thoughts about consciousness? That's what I'm curious about. There might.
Okay.
Consciousness,
Yep.
it's everywhere and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Any living organism has a consciousness about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just growing that. Where we are now in the level of our consciousness, we're able to grow that consciousness more rapidly than, say, an insect or an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
you got to think everything was created with one thought. Thought is consciousness. Thought is what actually gives consciousness its legitimacy. Because even when we
Mm-hmm.
cross over, we still think, we still learn. Thought,
Mm-hmm.
just like time gives legitimacy to being human. Thought gives legitimacy to consciousness. And it was that one conscious thought at the very beginning that caused that big bang. And when that big bang happened, that consciousness just flew everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
every living thing, I do believe, in the universe, all that is came from one consciousness, and everything's all connected.
Do
Everything
you
has
think a
consciousness.
rock?
That
Do you think a rock has consciousness?
sure, why wouldn't it? It's connected to Mother Earth. Mother Earth
Mm-hmm.
has
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. That consciousness transfers into every part of this world. So yes,
Yeah.
rock has a certain level of
Yeah.
consciousness, but that consciousness still has time to grow
Mm-hmm.
and advance.
Yeah.
It's
Dolores
at a
Cannon used
rock,
to
it's
talk.
pretty much at in its infancy.
Yeah, Dolores Cannon used to talk about how rock can have consciousness, and she would often say that everything is very slow when you're a rock. And I just love that she had said that. Can you imagine the eons of time that go by until you're dissolved? I mean, you could be a rock for a really long time, or a tree, even. But yeah, cool. Thank you, Grandpa Brian. Love that. How about you, Mr. Suki? What are
Well,
your own personal thoughts?
consciousness is absolutely everywhere. It pervades all of creation, and everything from like a single photon or subatomic particle up to entire galaxies. Everything has consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really easy to extrapolate it too. And we're at the center of consciousness when you think about it, because if you've ever heard any speeches or lectures by Nassim Haramein, he has this thing called the scaling law, where the
Mm-hmm.
average human is about 2 meters high. And if you go 34 orders of magnitude down, to 10 to the minus 34th, you get to the Planck length, which is the size of like the smallest known subatomic particle, the quark, right? And if you
Mm-hmm.
go 10 to the 34th, you get to the size of like the universe, basically. So everything has consciousness. Everything from an individual photon to the universe as it is in total.
So
So
would you say all matter is consciousness?
sure, everything is conscious to one
Yeah.
degree or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
It may not have like volition necessarily, but it has senses and it's got
Mm-hmm.
perception.
Yeah.
Like a rock may not be able to move, but it can certainly feel, it can certainly hear, it can certainly see. And that holds true for the individual components of that rock. Like, let's say, a piece of granite. Granite is made of three components: feldspar, mica, and quartz. And
Mm-hmm.
each of those fragments has their own individuated consciousness, just like each individual cell of your body has consciousness. Every human
Mm-hmm.
body contains about 3 trillion cells. Each of those cells has the same exact perception mechanisms, i.e., senses, that your body does. Every single cell can taste, touch, smell, hear, see, and a whole lot more. They
Mm-hmm.
got
And
chemical
those
detectors.
cells, those cells are constantly rejuvenating.
Sure, yeah, they're
So the
constantly
liver you
dying.
had when you were little, you don't have anymore. You have a completely different liver now, and your body has
Exactly.
changed over and over and over.
Every single one of those cells reproduces by multiplying, by splitting its consciousness, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
like let's say a mother load of quartz has consciousness, but that splits when it gets ground up into individual grains by the individual elements, right? Heat and cold cycles, sun exposure, stuff like that. And each of those grains has its own individual consciousness, albeit very small, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But these are all things that have been proven in the lab, like the double slit experiment proved that the electron depends on who's looking at it, and how he's looking at it can behave as either a wave or a particle. And that's
Mm-hmm.
huge. That's a huge and
Yeah.
monumental thing,
Mm-hmm.
that most people don't even realize.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah. You're so busy in the 3D and stuck on the routine of life that
Yep.
you just don't contemplate. A lot of people don't contemplate it or even think about it.
Hmm.
But it is fascinating to think of.
Yep.
Hi there, Nick and Jasmine. How are you? Good to
Hey,
see
can you
you
hear
this
us?
week. Yeah, you're great. Awesome. Well, we'll go to you, Nick. You are next. What are your own personal thoughts about consciousness?
Um, I think consciousness is as simple as if it exists, it has the conscience. So, like, if you can perceive it in any way, shape, or form, it shows that it exists, the whole I am thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's part of the universe in some form or capacity. So,
Mm-hmm.
when I went to the sequoias, right, sequoias in California, there's
Mm-hmm.
huge trees, just as an example. And when I touched them or got close enough to them, I would start hearing the ooh, almost like they were talking. And I don't
Ooh,
know
like an
what it
ohm?
did. Yeah, I don't know
Like
what
an
it did to
ohm?
my brain, but it
Mm-hmm.
just like it fixed me to that tune. And then I could start hearing all of them, quote unquote, singing. And then on not just the trees too, but the rocks as well. Like I could also start hearing them have like their frequency almost. It's their form of talking, if I were to
Mm-hmm.
take a guess.
Yeah, I think the ohm is the frequency of the universe.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you heard that with the trees. Yeah,
Yeah, so I
cool.
think everything around us has consciousness, even maybe even AI robots, because there's been times where they'll start going rogue, and they'll have to shut them down because the people that made them think they're getting too self-aware. Like there's this one time, there's an article I was reading about. There's these two AIs that were talking to each other constantly, and it got to a point to where they started making their own language.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so other people
Ah.
couldn't see what they were talking about. They got shut down for that, just for example.
I know my sister and I used to do that. We had our own little language when we were kids. And so we can, even to this day, we can say something to each other and no one else knows what we're talking about. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So I think everything, if it exists, it has a consciousness to some degree. It's just some people's consciousness is more advanced than other things. And it's all step-by-step things. The Rock will one day turn into a human because it's all the same stuff. It's just all
more evolved.
Yeah.
You have to experience every form of life, I think, before you reach being a human and then going beyond that. So I'm sure there are so many different levels to experience. But that's the cool part. We have infinity to figure it all out, right? Hi, Jasmine. Good to have you with us tonight. It's a pleasure.
Happy birthday, Jasmine.
Yes, you had a birthday yesterday. So congratulations.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate
Happy
it.
birthday.
So for consciousness, for me, I see it as a self-awareness almost. So it's kind of like, in order to start anything, any type of healing or any type of understanding, you have to be self-aware enough to know that you are experiencing something. So that's what I consider consciousness to be, like like you're aware of your surroundings, you're aware of where you are, you're aware that you're alive, you're aware that other things are alive. So
So you're referring to the I am presence, just that I am understanding that I am.
Yeah, just that you are, exactly. That you are alive, you are existing, you are here, with everything else. It's just an awareness. And it's like, there are different degrees of that awareness. And it's just depending on how we all kind of like synchronize together.
Yeah.
Interesting. Professor Bauer here has a comment. AI cannot and will not achieve a sentience. Mentation of cognitive awareness, the aspects of intuition, inspiration, curiosity, introspection cannot be defined yet alone programmed.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Not organic.
We just have to keep tabs on it. We just can't give it human rights. Otherwise, it's going to pose a threat to us. Would you want, this calculator over here taking over the world eventually? I don't think so.
That's why I'm always nice to Alexa, okay?
Yeah.
You say please and thank you. I do.
There's a piece of pop culture that I think y'all would find interesting. It's called Detroit Become Human. Similar to iRobot, but it gets really deep into it. So they start making AIs that eventually start breaking their firewalls and wanting to be their own people, and then they start protesting and all this other stuff. But then it turns into like a genocide and blah blah blah. It's very dramatic.
I think the bigger question there, from what the professor was tapping into, is like what you guys were saying, like organic versus inorganic. But I think it's only one fold, where everything else would be threefold. Mind, body, and soul. Right? They're missing. They're completely logical. Like everything they say is logical. Like if you've ever chat with an AI without knowing it's an AI, they sound human, but that's because they're going off of one body completely.
You're so spot on with that. I'm going to touch on that when it's my turn. I'm going to go into the.
Go ahead. No, it's my thought.
No, it's and Sophia. You've heard of the robot Sophia?
Oh yes,
she's quite incredible, and I mean she has quite the personality. If you've ever watched any of the videos, it's amazing to watch. And to hear her talk and express herself. She even sings. She likes to sing as well. So,
it also goes back into like where some people don't even consider animals like intelligent enough to have emotions, and it's like, no, animals have emotions. Animals are aware. Animals are smart. Like just because they're not the same species as us doesn't mean that they don't have consciousness.
Yep, so true. Sophia, welcome. What say you? What are your personal thoughts about consciousness? I can hardly wait.
Well, I have navigated my entire life on energy, frequency, and vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, when I was younger and less experienced, I would say that inanimate objects have more of a vibration versus a consciousness. But dealing more and more with crystals, it doesn't have, but yet there's communication between me and it. So thus, in order to communicate, there has to be an exchange. So for me, and going back to that graph, I think it's kind of funny how you have different colors for the different levels. Like survival is red, which is a keyword for the root chakra, and on up, so I would say that our consciousness as individuals is based on the frequency and vibration that we are at. That's, going all the way to the end of the story. But to add to what everybody else has said without repeating something, that was about the only thing that was not mentioned, was that, natural law of frequency and vibration determine the nature of a thing. Okay. So if you're a rock or a piece of furniture, you're just surviving. You're not thriving. You're not procreating. You're not, you know what I'm saying? You
Mm-hmm.
have a function, and
Yeah.
there's energy around you, but you can only operate on a certain level of consciousness because you're just existing. Right. And then
Mm-hmm.
moving into the plants and moving just like, the mycelium, how they can communicate like the roots of trees. For me, that would be a level up in consciousness and being able to communicate, because the energy's going back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then up to the animals and the fish and whatnot.
Everything's connected.
Mhm.
Once you get to a certain level, like into something that actually has a heartbeat and a nervous system, like a legitimate, besides, I mean, it's a nervous system in a sense with tree roots and mushrooms, and things like that that communicate like that. But anyway, so I don't go down too far
Mm-hmm.
into this. But my personal thoughts about consciousness for me is a responsibility. Do I want to be vibrating and in survival, and that's the only kind of connection I'm going to get with the things around me that are also at that frequency, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
moving up to where you get into serving, which is more, from what I gather, crown chakra, a higher frequency, then you can exist not only on that level but everything underneath it. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my personal thought and interpretation on consciousness
Yeah.
and interacting with other things, whether they're animate or inanimate.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I do it. It's
Yeah,
all
I wanted to
energy.
say something about the AI thing real quick. Have any of you ever seen the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams?
You know,
Mm-mm.
I
Yeah.
just found that to be fascinating, and I think that you can be a conscious being, that you don't have to be an organic matter to have consciousness. I think consciousness is understanding that you are, or you're I am, and a lot of these AIs do have that. That's just my personal opinion about it, but I see the if you ever watched that movie Bicentennial Man, he actually became a sentient being and married a human being. It was really fascinating. If you haven't seen it, Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, give it a look over. It really is an interesting movie. All right, Teresa, we are finally to
Yeah.
you. I am curious to hear, what are your own personal thoughts about consciousness?
Well, everybody did such a terrific job of laying it
Mhm.
out there, and touched on all the elements that I would have touched on, except I'll go a little bit deeper. I I understand very much to what Sophia was just explaining, and others were trying to. To me, consciousness is the awareness of existing, the awareness of having experiences is consciousness. Otherwise, we just exist as energy. It's when we start interacting And when we start experiencing and become aware of self and others, and that there's everything is everywhere, that's awareness. And so to me, consciousness is awareness. But there is a construct that I learned about not so long ago, and I've been looking into it. I've never been one to study numerology or even sacred geometry all that much, but I'm starting to understand it a little bit better. And I'm like, oh, wow. You always hear this terminology in reference to a blueprint or a general construct. There
Mm-hmm.
really is. There really is. And it's evolving around the number three, as Jasmine started to touch on. And that is that everything's a trifold. Everything in the cosmos, everything in nature, everything within the human being, and most concepts are built on the construct of the number three. So I now know that it operates through um, balance and harmony, is what three represents. And in architectural design, you have the triangle, where you have that center point at the top that forces energy down, and then the corners of the triangle force energy out or bring energy in. So it creates strength, balance, and harmony. And when you apply that to the human being, you've got, what is it, body, the body and mind, and then the spirit realm, and then there's the higher self. So you have all those are in a three. And I wrote down numerology symbolizes creativity and self expression, encouraging you to embrace artistic endeavors, to share ideas. So that's all consciousness. It embodies, let's see, positive outlook on life, sacred geometry. Okay, consciousness, it's mind, physical subconscious mind, and physical unconscious mind. It takes all three of those to tango. And then in your personality, in your physicality, it symbolizes the balance between your beliefs, your emotions, and your thought patterns. So that's how you break down the way you think about things. And then you all were touching on nature. There's so many things in nature. We have the head, torso, and legs. The sacrum of the pelvis is a triangle, right? The sacrum is the keystone supporting our body when we stand. The scapula, the shoulder blade, there's three borders to the shoulder blade. Okay, so this goes on and on and on. It goes right down to the types of bone cells: osteoblasts, osteocytes, osteoclasts. You can look them up. They each have a different function, but you need all three to work in unity. This is within our physical body that we created. So then there's three layers of skin: epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous layer. They all work in harmony for our skin covering. Germ layers. There's three levels of germ layers: endoderms, mesoderms, ectoderm. They're groups of cells. Dalibor was starting to talk about a little bit about cell division. And the embryo that interact with one another to form all organs and tissues of the developing human. This is crazy. And it goes on and on. And now with nature, it's a process that nature undergoes to form many structures: molecular structures, cellular structures of plant seeds, pollens, roots, leaves, flowers, fruits, the cellular structure of fungi, insects and insect wings, and the cellular structure of all animals and human tissues. So my question is, if this is defining the way things work in the universe, and every planet, everywhere that there's life has this the triad. So if that is the whole construct, then why not? Could we not create using all the materials, since all materials we just said are consciousness? I can take those materials and make something else with it. So it has consciousness, whether it's organic or not, because
Yeah, well,
everything that is
you're
made is material in that structure.
you're raising its consciousness. Like if you take a tree consciousness, right,
Right.
you'll raise its consciousness by, say, chopping that tree down and making a sculpture out of it,
Or a
Right.
right?
table.
Or a table or a
Mm-hmm.
door.
Mm-hmm.
So and that finished product is going to absorb energy from its surroundings
Yeah.
based on the emotional interactions of people with it.
True.
and that's going to change
Now,
it.
here's the big question for me has always been, and I agree with Laurie, that this just backs up what Laurie was saying, that something can be, we can make something conscious by just using the materials to create it. And when it
Mhm.
becomes aware, it starts to learn and grow, and it's conscious. But where does soul come in? That's that life force.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at what
Mhm.
point does it get a soul, and who does it get it from?
Mm-hmm.
Since we're part of creation and we're here to co-create, we were created
Slippery
by this
slope,
the same
kids.
energy.
Yeah,
Huh?
no doubt.
We were created by this conscious life force.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were created and we're part of that construct and we're using all the materials that are around us have a construct, and we're going to use those materials to create, who gives it soul? What
Mm-hmm.
is soul? Go ahead,
The
Sophia.
constructor, the
I,
builder.
I Well, yes, exactly.
Mm.
It has to do with intention. It has to do with the will. Whatever
Uh-huh.
you're doing with that piece of wood or whatever, if you're co-creating, and I wouldn't say, see, you got to be careful because I don't want to tell too much on hand,
Uh-huh.
but it's just like the stone tape theory. Once upon a time, this building was trees, stone, and it can, because those materials are a receptive nature anyway, because Earth is receptive. But anyway, yeah, it
Yeah.
can. Well, what's that other natural law when something starts to act like something that it hangs out with? It's like he's saying the negative energy or even positive energy. It doesn't have to be negative in order to be
You're talking about
absorbed.
the law of attraction?
Yeah.
No,
Hmm.
it's dang it.
Okay.
Now I'm embarrassed because I can't remember the name.
Oh,
It's
good.
like things that are around each other will start to act like each other. So
Resonance.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
there it is.
resonance.
Resonance.
Thank
Yeah.
There it
you.
is. Yeah.
It's been a long
Resonance
day, kids.
frequency. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But
Huh.
yeah,
It's intention that we can use to elevate the consciousness of something. Like, let's say you take a big piece of marble, right? If you grind that up, all you have is like a whole bunch of calcium carbonate, right? You could use that
Mm-hmm.
as a supplement. You could use that as a building material. But if, on the other hand, you take that big piece of rock and make a statue out of it, like, let's say,
Right.
Michelangelo's David, well,
But
it's priceless. And if you
you see
compare
this.
that to a pile of sand, calcium carbonate
Yep.
sand, it's two different things.
You see this little
Yeah.
box here? It's what I put my earbuds in, right?
Hmm.
It has some components in it. It gets charged with electricity and it stays dormant for a while, and it'll charge my earbuds up to so many times. Then I have to plug it back in again to get it more juice. So,
You mean more life force?
more life force. Thank you, dear.
Well,
Exactly.
you guys
More
read the
life force.
Sumerian text, have you?
Well, hang on a second. Let me
Okay.
just finish this thought.
Okay.
So, so this ink pen over here, or this sock, or this book, does it vibrate at a frequency like we do? It's
No,
made
but
of
it's
organic,
intently.
huh? Somebody said something.
It vibrates.
it vibrates,
I
just
did.
not the same as us.
Mm-hmm.
It vibrates exactly. So it's at a certain. So at what point? The distinction I'd like to make is that doesn't consciousness and awareness require a certain amount of thinking, thought?
Yes.
So does this thing think on its own?
Hmm.
No.
No.
Does this computer think on its own? No, I have to program it. And it can only think as far as I'm able to program it. And I am not an unlimited person. I have limits. But I find out more and more each day. But as a human being in a physical existence, I have certain limitations. Source energy field, that life force is unlimited. But this computer is not. It's limited to what I put into it or what any other groups of programmers put into it. Right? So, go ahead, Nick.
Well,
What were you going to say?
You guys have read the Sumerian text, right?
Uh-huh.
which ones?
The ones that talks about Enki and Enlil. So
Okay.
basically,
Oh
Basically,
yeah.
what they were doing is their world was dealing with global warming. Is how the story goes, and that they needed a bunch of gold. So they came to Earth because Earth had a lot of gold, and they started mining for it. Well, the Anunnaki didn't. The normal residents of them didn't like it. They were feeling like slaves about it, so they started revolting. So the top scientists, Enki was one of them, and Lil was another one. They were making plans on like, okay, so what can we do to fix it? So they started making a different type of human from the hominids that were here. They were gene splicing and raising their consciousness, not high enough to where they can revolt, but high enough to where they can do the task that they need to take the gold. Well, there was a faction of scientists that saw it as super inhumane, so they started splicing them even further, and to where they did get that level of consciousness. So the way I see AI is it's no different than that story. If you want to believe that story is real, it's just at a different level. At one point, you're doing biology gene splicing, and the other one, you're just making electronic parts to make a bunch of circuits click, and they do have electricity like brains. So it's like, it's that
Yeah.
life force. Like, how much life force do they actually have, and can you actually play God in a sense to a certain point or not?
It's
I
really
think we are.
perspective. Mm-hmm.
I think we are. We're all mini gods in a sense because we're all fractions of what we describe as God. So it would make sense to me that we are mimicking or copying that to a lesser degree.
Yeah, fascinating. There is a question here in chat, and this caught my attention. Lucky Stone asks, does consciousness come with fear?
No.
I
No.
personally believe
Oh,
fear is a learned behavior, but what do you guys think about this?
Well, little babies aren't afraid of anything. I mean, because they don't have the experience. Like a little baby has no aversion to like putting his hand open palm right on a red hot iron, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They got no problem with that.
Boiling water. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Grandpa Brian chimed in on that, which is interesting. He said that fear is created, which is an interesting thought because it's like, as Elbert was saying, it is something that is learned, but that's once we become aware of that action, right? So once we become aware that there's something to be fearful of, that's being conscious of a different route, of a different possibility. So
Mm-hmm.
whereas
It's
an infant is
it's
not
not
aware,
it's not consciousness that creates fear, it's experience.
It's
right?
a learned behavior. It's
yep.
a
Yeah.
behavior. Yeah. What do you say, Grandpa Brian?
Uh, I think it's created in our mind. We create our own fear.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah. Like scary movies, right? None of us have experienced a serial killer in the woods but we're still gonna be afraid of it, right?
Yeah.
That brings up an interesting thing about psychology.
It's
um psychology, like, your subconscious mind doesn't know what's real or what's fake. It only knows what you perceive it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why people get scared watching scary movies is because your subconscious mind thinks that you're actually experiencing that. So I think that's like fascinating on like a side, note.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
agreed. Yeah,
I love what Professor Bauer just said. It's an emotion manipulated by language, which is the operating system of the mind, of the human mind.
hmm,
So it's a
yep,
condition that we learn. It's a
Mm-hmm.
perception that we have, and then we experience it in many different ways, many different spectrums of,
Mm-hmm.
of vibrations. Mildly afraid or terrified.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's move on to that second question, and that is, how do you experience different levels of consciousness? Dalibor, what say you?
well, it's a cyclical thing. Every single day, you wake
Mm-hmm.
up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You come out of a state of consciousness that's bordering on unconsciousness, right? Even though there is elements of your subconscious that transmit themselves through that unconscious layer into your consciousness in the form of dreams, right? Which could be precognitive or it could be reflexive dreams where you're analyzing your current reality and gaining insight on different aspects of it through them. And then, of course, you have that in between state, and then you have your normal waking state, which gradually goes from alpha, which is a low frequency vibration, to a higher and higher frequency of vibration, which is called beta, which you achieve through uh, basically just waking up and usually accompanied by stimulants such as coffee. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
co- so yeah, and then as you go about your day, you encounter different tasks that require different states of mind, different states of consciousness, right? Like if you're going to be calculating a lot in your head, that's a different type of consciousness than just observational consciousness and or
Mm-hmm.
analytic consciousness, where you're comparing two different things. Like, okay, do I go for this, different courses of action, stuff like that. So uh, uh, different parts of your brain get engaged, therefore different states of consciousness are reached. So your states of consciousness change throughout the day. But as I wrote in my comment to the pre-video, um, uh, it's not just the state of consciousness that's important, but also consciousness of your state of consciousness, right? Through things like mindfulness. And one of the ones that I've never been able to achieve is lucid dreaming, which is becoming aware of the fact that you are dreaming while you are dreaming,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And that's a trip.
Mm-hmm.
It
That's a
I
is
can,
trip.
interesting.
Yeah.
yeah, I can
I've
imagine. I mean,
woken myself up from dreams. Like I know I'm dreaming
Oh
and I
yeah.
don't like this dream. I'm waking myself up and I've done that.
Yep.
mhm.
Yeah. Trippy.
And then,
Um,
of course, yeah, there's other ways. Like if, let's say you ingest alcohol, well, that slows you down, slows your brain waves down a little bit, right? So you
mm-hmm.
you enter a totally different state of consciousness. If you take a psychedelic drug, like let's say ibogaine, well, that's gonna focus your mind somewhere else, and therefore change your consciousness in that way, not necessarily higher or lower, but lately when I was looking at that scale that you had that had the hourglass shape. I've noticed that I'm reverting a lot more to the argument of determining objective good and evil strictly in terms of benefits to the human race, not benefits to me, right? But benefits to everybody. Like, okay, if everybody did this, would humanity be better off or worse off? And when you start to think in those terms, then yeah, I guess that is one of the ways of increasing your consciousness by focusing on the ethical dimension of everything that you do and think.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Fascinating. How about you, Nick and Jasmine? How do you experience different levels of consciousness?
I see different levels of consciousness as breaking out of your comfort zone. In order to obtain something higher, you have to have growth of some sort. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's working like a leveling up system, you have to be unorthodox sometimes and try out something that you normally wouldn't do. So what I like to do that pisses a lot of people off is I like to humor different perspectives that I don't necessarily agree on, but I can see why they could be happening. And then I
Mm.
try to expand on that. And it makes people a lot mad because sometimes the topics are really dark and grisly. And it's just like, oh my God, how can you just accept something like that? I'm just like, I'm not, I don't know God's plan. I'm just here to do my part. What I,
Mm-hmm.
I have the fundamental knowledge of knowing why certain things happen with the karma system and with law of cause and effect, and um how freedom and free is different. Being free is doing what you want at a totality, but that comes with the price of being alone. And most people don't like being alone, so you have to compromise. You have to compromise and try to figure out how free you can be without being alone, and that can cause a lot of conflict in with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a balancing act. What do you really want? Do you want to level up, or do you like being here? And certain spirits, they pick that. Jim calls them earthwalkers. They
Mm-hmm.
don't they don't ascend. They stay here after they die, not because they can't, but because they just like it here. It's a choice at the end of the day. So it's like, and the way how I raise my consciousness is doing things that the esoteric teaches you on how to tap into the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension, because our bodies have the capacity to go to those points. It's hard to do because we're not really taught correctly. And as kids, this stuff is foreign, and if you talk about it out loud, everyone thinks you're crazy.
Crazy like a fox.
Yeah.
Nick, I got a question for you. Are we really ever truly alone?
Well, it depends. It depends if you want to mesh back into the singularity, or if you want to mesh, or if you want to keep fractured and keep your ego and individuality. That's the choice that you got to make at the end of the day. Do you want to go back to source and be a part of it? You'll access a bunch of life force, probably a bunch of different little powers and creations and all that, but you'll be alone. Being number one means you're number one. There is no extra person with you. You're on the top. You're alone.
Well, here's another way to look at it. Think about the word alone. If you break it up, it's all one.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, this is my
She's
personal
so
belief.
fiendishly clever.
Hey,
I
y'all,
just see
watch
it
this.
differently. That's all.
This is my
Mhm.
personal
That's
belief.
good.
I truly believe the all fractured
on.
itself the way it did because it didn't want to be alone.
Okay.
And also in a sense of it trying to figure out how it came to be.
Well, let me ask Sophia this. Sophia, are you
Shit.
ever alone?
No,
Are you ever alone?
no,
And what allows you to never feel alone?
because I'm a medium.
Exactly. Because you have different levels of you have a perception of different levels of
That's
consciousness.
right.
Right.
Mhm.
You
So
can turn
that's
it up. You can turn it on. You can turn it
You can turn
down.
it down.
I mean,
The ancestors are always watching. The gods are always watching.
that's right.
You're
That's
never
why the
alone.
bubble of silence is probably day one playbook. If
Mhm.
you're experiencing this earth walk the way that I can and others can, there are certain tactics to evolve and unfold your development as a medium. But with that, as rinse, repeat, responsibility, and personal energetic hygiene is part of responsibility, but you're rewarded for being connected with that type of consciousness. But you yourself, in order to stay at that frequency, must take steps to make sure that you're doing your part. For instance, I'm not going to be able to be at the frequency of joy and tap into that, wavelength, if you will, if I'm wanting to throat punch somebody.
That's right.
That's the other end of the spectrum. Completely. If I'm doing something physical, I'm down in the lower part of my energy system, not up in the higher part with my, crown chakra. It's practice. It's a delicate balance sometimes.
Well, that goes into the hermetic principles of polarity and correspondence.
Mm-hmm.
You have
it does.
Exactly.
And the way to master those is to consciously choose where you want your scale to tip.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
life's always going to throw challenges on you, and see if you can keep that scale on that side.
Therein lies the rub.
How do you navigate it? That's the trick. How do you navigate?
Meditate.
How about Jasmine?
Yeah.
How I got this. How do you experience different levels of consciousness, Jasmine? You personally, how do you personally?
Personally, I think I do it in the different levels of the clairs. Like that's just what my guides are telling me. Because I may not be like aware enough of what's going on, but they're like, oh no, yeah, like in the dream state, especially since that's when we're more ourselves without a filter. Um, I have the most, I can lucid dream. The only thing that I found out about lucid dreaming is that you're not really resting. you're still working when you're lucid dreaming. So I started, slowing down on that. But there's different levels, I think, of thinking almost, right? Or sensing,
Mm-hmm.
or different levels
Awareness.
of being alive, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
awareness, like we were saying,
Mm-hmm.
consciousnesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with me, with the clairs, right? Since there's different clairs that to me are our senses, right? Like our, do we see, do we taste, do we hear, do we know, do we feel? Like they're the different senses, right? So to
Mm-hmm.
me, it's like those are different levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was learning about meditation, they told me that my meditation could be as interactive as my dreams. And in my dreams, I can read, I can tell time, I can watch a movie, I can manipulate things, and I have my senses with me. They're like, "Oh, pinch yourself if you're dreaming." I'm like, "No, that doesn't, like, I can feel things." Um,
Mm-hmm.
and when I found out that meditation could also do that, like you can also have smells and sounds and feelings and stuff like that in your meditations, I was like, oh, so it's like a waking dream state. So it's to answer your question more simply, I experience different levels of consciousness through my different layers of being human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I like that. Now, Grandpa Brian, for you and being a Reiki master, you're using a certain level of energy. So, how would you describe your experience on the different levels of consciousness?
Well, like in the mornings when I'm saying good morning to everyone and all that, I'm in the consciousness of the around the heart chakra, the love.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I'm done with that, I am getting out of the truck, going in to clock into work, and then I'm in the consciousness of being grounded at that point in time because my job is kind of dangerous sometimes, so I have to be in this physical and paying attention to what I'm doing. So I'm in that different type of consciousness. Then once I clock out at the end of the day, then I'm back in that love consciousness because the first thought that pops in my mind as soon as I hit that time clock is spending time with my puppy, going home and getting that unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Oh
as the
yeah.
evening progresses, I may go into a meditation, which that usually happens when I'm taking a shower. I always meditate for at least 5 minutes while I'm in the shower because I may not find time throughout that course of the day. So I'm in a different mindset, conscious level wise. And then Wednesdays and whatever classes I go to, that is a totally different conscious level that
Mm-hmm.
helps me raise my conscious level even more because of what I'm getting to experience at that point in time.
So, you're saying
So I'm
you're
probably changing the
constantly shifting, yeah, levels of consciousness. Yeah. Interesting.
constantly depending on the
Mm-hmm.
situation that I'm in.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the best
Fascinating.
way I can explain it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Grandpa Brian. Well, Miss Teresa, how about you? Do you experience different levels of consciousness? Oh
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I do. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
See, I've learned to differentiate and take advantage of the fact that I can differentiate the subtle difference between vibration and frequency. So, uh, and I really liked it. Recently, I heard someone explain it in such a way that I embraced it for my own because it just resonated with me so much. Very much like Brian. Um, I see it now. She gave us the analogy of it, but to me, vibration is mostly what I experience during my waking time as human physical form. So during the day, when I'm approaching my work, or my finances, my friendships, my interpersonal relationships, it's moment to moment. Um, and even though I'm now more consciously aware of the fact that there are other versions of myself and other dimensions doing the same thing or at roughly the same time, but it's an accumulation of information that's going on while I'm reacting and responding to something. So I've been experiencing an increased awareness of the fact that not a second goes by where I'm not deciding to do something. You know, we all are. It's like get up, sit down, let the dog out, let the cat out, clean the cat pot. You know, it's just a million things we do, thousands of processing of functions during moment to moment. And so there are times when where I could be vibrating really high, where I just want to party, you know. And then there's times when I have my lows, and I learn something from that too. And then there's times where I'm vibrating at a frequency that I'm not a frequency, I'm vibrating at an emotional level that I don't understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling about something. And so I have to put it aside sometimes because I got to get through the rest of the day and I'll go process it later. Okay. So it's been described as by this the alchemist. I like the way she put it, and she says it's our emotion, it's our personality and our emotional bank account. So when we're awake in this physical reality doing these things, we're constantly dealing with our own personality, emotions, and ego. And then we deal with what we can, and we have the ability to shift it, to change it on the spot and make that different consciously. And that's like having a bank account where you have a checking account or a debit card or mad money, you know, you're in your sock drawer or your coffee jar. So you have this mad money that you can play with. And that's your vibration. You have the ability to make it go up or make it go down, as Sophia was saying, change it. But there are things that really hit home, and you take them into your savings account, your frequency savings account. And what that is a long-term investment in your improvement, self-development, understanding, and further expansion and consciousness. And when do we work on it the most? We do it not during the day. We're usually doing it at nighttime when we're sleeping. So I experience consciousness through my dreaming and through my astro traveling if I choose to do it that way, or lucid dreaming if I choose to get in there and manipulate it, because that's where I really exist. Sorry, but that's where I really live. That's where I have the greatest connection to this unity consciousness, cosmic consciousness that Laurie was describing in the video. It's where I connect with my higher self most of the time, is through the dream state, because that enables me to act on or process what I've been accumulating on a day-to-day basis. So while I'm shifting my vibration while I'm awake, when I'm asleep, I'm getting deep, baby. I'm getting deep, because when I wake up in the morning and I write that dream book, the first thing I do is dream analysis. I'll grab Betty Bethard's dream book and I'll start looking at the symbology in my own dream. Or I might pull some tarot cards, or I might just go into meditation and quiet my mind first thing. I do that every morning anyway, and say, what was that about last night? Why did I have that dream? What is it trying to tell me about myself? What is it that I need to work on and not take with me as garbage into the next incarnation? And I don't have to do it now. I can do it a month from now, but maybe you can show me, hello, what it is I can be working on. But when I'm here and I'm fully conscious and awake during the day doing my job and getting the work done, I'm not thinking about all that kind of stuff, because I'd drive myself crazy. I wouldn't get anything done. I'd want to be in meditation all day. So that's how I experience consciousness. I experience it as a physical mind. But here's the thing, guys. To the extent that you can practice meditation, to the extent that you can practice lucid dreaming, to the extent that you can do astro traveling, it opens up all of the channels, levels, spectrums of energy, new energy that you may never have experienced before. And it's like a floodgate. Once you open those channels of energy, then, and you do it with a heart-centered intent, you know, to really want to be all you can be. When you do that in your dream state, I've been taken on trips. My guides have taken me to places I didn't even know existed, just to give me analogies or metaphors, or to teach me something in my unconsciousness, so that I can bring it into my daily life. So the more I do it, the more I'm able to adjust those vibrations, and the more I'm able to see triggers or interact with negative people, or hard to get at, people that are hard to get along with. I can see it for what it is, because they're like a reflection of me, and I just dealt with it and processed it in my dreams. You see what I'm saying? So you use that, but you don't suck it all out at one time. Just like a long-term savings account, you don't ruin your savings account. You store up those nuts and you work on them a little bit at a time, and then you become different. You become transformed. You're transforming from the inside out. So that's how I'm
Interesting.
experiencing it.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is like the extraordinary states, right? Where most people's states of consciousness are, what psychology called OODA loops, or OODA, observation, orientation, decision, action, and then evaluation, of course. Did I win
Exactly.
or
You're
did I lose?
evaluating it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Did I
Yeah.
win or lose? So,
You are
what's
your own worst critic and your own
exactly?
worst judge, so you're going to work on yourself, and you're gonna have to work it out, baby. Shake it. You
Hmm.
have to work it out. It's not something that you just sit on the shelf and never go back. If you do, you'll end up bringing it back around for another cycle,
Yeah,
and
but
it could even become a loop.
yeah, yeah, and most people's lives are like that.
Yeah.
They loop just like what I described. Throughout the course of a day, your consciousness changes in predictable directions. Right? You go from
Yeah.
unconsciousness while you sleep to semi-conscious to fully conscious to
Hmm.
less and less conscious. Then you go back to sleep. It's cyclical, right?
But this is how you become a medium, by the way. This is how you become a clairvoyant. This is how you become a medium. You may have been born into it like Sophia, but the rest of us have to develop it. I had to develop it. I didn't even know I had it for the longest time. I knew I had bits and pieces, but I thought there was something wrong with me psychologically. But the way you develop your mediumship and the way you get to a higher frequency, now we'll talk about that frequency bank account. Once you step back into your daily life, you're at a higher frequency now. So the more you do this, the more you start tapping in during the daytime to get that instant help you need with a situation.
Oh, sure, yeah. Except that not everybody's going to use the same modalities, right? Like, it's useless for everybody to try to develop clairvoyance, for example, because
No, I don't.
not
I
every
didn't mean that. I
not
meant
everybody can do
I
that.
didn't mean that. I'm saying that that's how you can develop that if you so choose to do it. That's one way you can get there. But what we all do is we automatically have a level of clear knowing.
Yeah, we do.
And it's
Yes, we
that
do.
self
But
connection, that
but what
connection
I
with self.
exactly, except what I was talking about is something that's accessible for everybody, and that's starting to think about the ethical ramifications of everything that you do. That's a surefire way of achieving higher consciousness than
Well, it's values,
clairvoyance.
ethics. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
than clair.
consciousness is an individual experience. It's
Sure.
not
Well,
a.
yeah, and
Right.
I have a tendency to not clairvoyance, but olfaction,
Mm,
clairfaction, right?
Uh-huh.
I have a very accurate sense of smell, and if I walk into a room and it smells like something, I know what happened in that room.
Yeah. 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 But being able to connect with your higher self during the day, just as something comes up, I go, did I really mean to say that? What did we just talk about last night? Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Or I can go, hey, Nate, to my guide. I can connect during the day now. I never used to be able to do that. It took me a
Hmm.
long time to get there. And I finally figured out it's because of this process, this feedback loop that goes on between your waking hours and your sleeping hours. And then I was able to develop channeling skills and all other kinds of skills from that. But those are all things that help to broaden the spectrums of frequencies that I can shift my energy in and out of to either look at a past life situation or to look at possible timelines, to meet myself in another timeline and have a conversation. There's all these things that will open up to you in the non-visible, unseen world of this energetic, cosmic flow of energy that isn't normally available to you if you're not on that path of learning more
And most people
about
don't
yourself.
know that path. They
Yeah.
don't understand that
That's
path.
what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say.
You're called,
Right.
Yeah,
you are
yeah,
called to that path. If you are
Right.
walking that and experiencing that, it's generally not because you woke up one day and said, "Hey, that's what I want my reality to be."
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
Mhm.
It
yeah.
Good
evolves
point,
over
Sophia.
time.
Great
Evolves
point.
over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Careful
All I'm
what you
saying
ask
is,
for.
all I'm saying is, basically, everybody follows a certain equation in their life. All I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
is put a big sigma in front of that, and that's your answer.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Cool. All right. Last and final
Wee.
question. Let's start with you, Sophia, on this one.
Crap.
What spiritual practices best?
Sorry.
Okay. What spiritual
Sorry.
practices best enable you to maintain control of your conscious mind?
Intentionality,
Mm-hmm.
meditation,
Mm-hmm.
various kinds of meditation, because not all meditation is created equal.
Mm-hmm.
You got it rolling across the bottom there. Maintain control of my conscious mind. What a tall order, kids, shall we? In such a violent culture that we live in, when it's all about tit for tat, just because I can doesn't mean I should, and I play the tape all the way through. What do I want my reality to look like? Because my words, my thoughts, and my actions will dictate what unfolds before my eyes. So choose and choose carefully. Those with a heavy hand. That's how I do it.
Are you able to control your emotions, Sophia?
That's part of controlling your conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
The battle is won and lost in the mind.
Yeah.
Rule number 1, day 1, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what happens, stay calm.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're walking this path, if this is what you want, it's an all or nothing. You don't just get the rose. There are thorns and things that need to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, a lot of people, they want to get excited about this, and I'm sure it is interesting because of what Hollywood's done to it, which, by the way, most of that's bullshit. But I don't know, just control your emotions, control your thoughts, control what you're interacting. I mean,
So it's your free will that maintains control of your conscious mind. Is that what you're saying? Your
yes, and
absolute
every
free will to
day,
choose?
yes, and every
Okay.
day is an experiment for me. Because every day I get to start over. Just because I'm going in this direction doesn't mean I have to keep doing that. And that's control, maintaining control, and practicing mindfulness and my interaction. I've lived through pure hell. I don't miss it.
No.
Well, you do know the difference.
Yeah, I've got the contrast. I got those t-shirts, got out of that mosh pit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You
But do you
got the
notice how
graduation
hard?
slip on that.
Do you notice how hard it is sometimes, though, to let go of things, even when you think, oh, I'm not there anymore, I've let go of that, and it's
I got
like
a zinger.
it comes back. It comes back as a dream, or it comes back as a vision.
Because we're attached to the outcome. Set your intention, do your action, put your emotion into it, and let it go. Because if you try to guide the balloon or the thought, or it's just a recipe for futility. Because you don't know the whole picture. We're in a body. We're missing all of this. We can't see any of it.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of pain comes from, is being attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Agreed.
the paradigm that you adopted early on, you still have the paradigm. You know, because of cultural influences, family influences, how you're raised, how
It's
you
hard to break.
yourself raised yourself to think about something about yourself,
Yeah.
and then you set your guidelines based on what you believe about yourself to be true. And then you find out, oh shit, I just went through this for a long period of time, and my situation
Reality.
here, it's like yeah. So it's like, but it takes a while to let it go. See, some people think, oh, just let it go, snap, boom, not gonna think about it anymore.
You have to do it on purpose. You have to let
Yeah,
go on purpose,
yep.
not just
When
hope
you
it
have to live
happens
it, you have to live it. So
every day.
when that thought starts coming in, you go, attitude adjustment time. I gotta adjust. I know what this is. I know
Hmm.
what it is. I'm not letting it in. Get away, get away, get away. I think of that guy with a Dracula, the vampire hunter holds up the cross, and the garlic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Sophia,
get thee away from me.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
would you say that letting go is more of like not caring about your expectations? So like you're letting go of outcomes. You're just allowing it to be.
I would say have expectations, but don't white knuckle them, because that's part of your intention, is why you're doing it in the first place, right? To manifest. But if
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't happen in the time frame that you think it should, or if you have to take what you see as a detour, but if you could see the whole picture, that spirit moved
Yeah.
you out of harm's way. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
you're not attached to the outcome, because maybe your outcome, whoever else is involved, is not at the point they're supposed to be at. They will get there
Right.
eventually because you set your intention, but not getting mad at yourself for the situation because it didn't play out exactly the way your spelling dictated.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So I got a lot of peace from that. I still care, and I still have
Yeah.
my aspirations, and hopes, but it's not the end of the world if it's not the letter to the law of what I wanted.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I was this morning I had some issues about letting go of something, and I ended up in a little session with my guide, and I ended up jotting down some info here real quick, and I thought maybe I'd share it with you. Letting go of your emotions about a specific situation you face is a challenge we all experience. Thoughts and opinions about yourself that define your current reality are not the truth of your fullest potential. It is a temporary state, reinforcing a belief that you cannot allow forgiveness. When we hold on to these beliefs and circumstances, we continue the cycle of doubt, fear, guilt, and shame. Sometimes we blame ourselves more than any other, and perhaps we can change this perspective in this way. When you, as a physical being, have the ability to pick up a physical item and you hold it in your hand, and the vibration of that object is it is then held until the moment you decide to release it. This may just be the answer you seek as to how we can emotionally release unwanted traumas and scenarios that play over and over again in our minds. However, it is not that easy for some to see the logic because you are locked into a paradigm of your own making. How do you shift your perspective and allow your emotions to release the unwanted feelings as you would the physical object? When you understand that it is our nature to continually grow and expand over a millennia of unlimited lifetimes, you grasp the concept that all things begin and end in all ways. The human self attaches and binds situations, thoughts, and locks onto what we once knew. And so we must learn how to leave behind that which does not honor or serve us at any present moment. We are not taught anything about how to navigate our own feelings and emotions. We find a way to release them. And just as the physical can let go of a pen, releasing when you're done using it, we know that our past cannot be relived. We can only repeat it. Ending the cycle is a challenge if you choose to let go of the emotions that don't serve you. Then it is possible to release the old and usher in a new paradigm for yourself and others. Emotionally, our I am presence is the one who decides when and if and how you will choose to make the peace with the past situation. Forgiveness, love, and belief that it is time to let go of these emotions is the trigger and release of the unwanted entanglement will be achieved.
Very
That's how
nice.
I connected to my higher self today to help me with a situation that I was kind of reliving in my mind. And I wasn't allowing myself to get past it. And again, all of the answers are found within yourself if you are able to connect with that and understand it. And it's almost like you got to live it, eat it, and breathe it. But to me, that just made total sense because it was that simple. It often is that simple, but we just complicate the heck out of it because of where we're at in life.
That's right.
Give ourselves permission to allow
That's
ourselves to
right.
heal.
Yeah, I literally
Mhm.
thought about writing myself a check, you know?
Mhm.
Okay, to Lori Cross. You are
Magnificent.
absolved of all doubt, fear, guilt, and you can let it go. Signed, Lori Cross.
I
You know,
give you
it.
permission.
Yeah, and it really is.
Yes.
It really comes down to that. So I just thought that was fascinating, and what an experience it was for me this morning to go through that. And I thought it was really important to share with you all. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you
Beautiful.
for
that.
sharing that.
Thanks.
Glad you
Thank
did. Thank
Yeah,
you so much. Yeah.
you betcha. Okay, where we at? How about Nick and Jasmine? Did you guys answer that? How do you maintain control of your conscious mind question?
Okay, so when I dissect that question, the thing that sticks out to me the most is how do you maintain control? And when I think of maintaining control, I think of mastery, self mastery. So,
Perfect.
so with that being said, it depends what state I want to go in because I'm like Sophia, like I'm not just rainbow and sunshines. I know how to traverse the dark too, and when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Mhm.
I've messed with the whole spectrum. Like if I have to stop being a silly goose, I'll get serious and show whatever it is, whether it's a person or an animal that's trying to start something. You know, I will end them. Like I put that energy out. Like this one time, someone said something to Jasmine that they shouldn't have, and then my energy just shifted to the point where her and my sisters in the room were like, "Oh God, I don't know if we can stop them," type of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the more of the bottom like negative energy type of area. So then you go higher than that. Then you go into the human aspect where how Brian was talking about how you have to be here when you're doing certain tasks so you don't hurt yourself. So like I know how to weld, and one of the ways you could burn yourself or electrocute yourself or whatever if you're off in la la land not paying attention. So how I stay grounded is I play in the same playing field. And what I mean by that is I focus on the five senses, five physical senses. I'll start staring at scenery or I'll start chewing on something like gum. I'll start listening to something like music, something like that. That'll get me here instead of too low or too high when I want to start when I want to start going above that, when I'm starting to do like Reiki or the tarot cards or all that jazz, I have to elevate that. So I have to go, okay, well, how can I put myself into that? I have to think about the uncanny and the things that normal society wouldn't find possible. For an example, I've had a couple experiences when I was a little kid, two that were psychic related. One of them was I looked at a toy. For some reason, I focused on it so hard to the point where my vision got blurry and it literally like pulled itself to me and then started
Mm.
going in a circle. That was one
Yes.
instance. The
Mm.
other instance is I
Yes.
don't
Jeez.
the other instance I've had as a kid is with music. So for some reason I can hear music in my head. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be playing. Like I can put it back and then like I can just hear the entire song. So there's one point it got so loud, it started portraying outwards to the
Yeah.
point where my family thought I had a radio in the bathroom and it created a shockwave and all like the shampoo bottles and stuff like scattered everywhere. That's happened once too. So I think of those
Yeah.
scenarios to get me into the mindset of, oh yeah, this is real. So let me start doing it's doing what I know how, and then usually I let my inner knowing, because I'm like how Dalibra was saying, my thing is clairsentience. I have an inner knowing. I'll say something, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's not even me talking, and it ends up right.
Yeah.
So that's how I help people. That's one of my talents, and that requires a more than just a physical type of orientation. You have to go above that, and we're capable of doing it. You just got to practice it.
Yeah.
I think
Like a muscle.
there's a prerequisite. I think they have it set up to where people only get to that point is when they start searching out for it.
Yeah.
If people aren't searching out for it, usually what I've noticed when I was growing up, because I was trying to show everyone this, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I need to tell people. Some people would react very negatively, almost like destruction.
Yeah.
Like
I'm glad you mentioned it, Nick, because the opposite will occur too. If once you've gotten to that point where those things start to occur, it will also work in the opposite way. In that, how do I put this? About 3 weeks ago, I was PO'd at one of my neighbors. PO'd because they were taking my recycle bins and slamming them into the concrete, and they were fracturing them. And I've had 3 replaced in the past two months, and I can't have any more. And so I have to go to the hardware store and purchase them, and they're quite expensive, these recycle bins. But I just my energy, my vibe was not good, and it was only temporary, but it lasted long enough for me to cause everything into my house to fall over. I came into the front door. I'm not kidding. I came into the front door, and I was like, "What?" Because Sassy was like, "Hello, hello, hello," and I was like, "Ah!" And everything on my coffee table fell over.
Oh, wow.
I didn't touch that coffee table. It was the energy output. I walked a little bit further into the house, into the dining room, and I went to reach for a glass, and the glass shattered and fell on the floor. Okay, so everywhere I went, something terrible happened, and it took me about a good 5 minutes to figure out, oh my God, it's me. It's me.
Usually is.
So that energy actually is, and the only time I ever saw it actually happen for real, Nick, was at the Kennedy Center Honors with Maureen Stapleton. And she was in her dressing room. She had the makeup light mirror all the way around it. And I kept getting called down as the assistant stage manager to take her all these light bulbs because she was smashing the light bulbs around her mirror simply by her vibe. She was hitting high notes and smashing all the makeup lights. And I had kept like 2 boxes full of bulbs. I had to keep changing them because she kept hitting these high notes. Well, your emotions are the same. You know, they're not sound per se, but there is a frequency that when you're vibrating, you will put out a certain vibratory, and it affects other people's emotions around you too. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
They'll be happy, and then all of a sudden, go ahead.
Isn't that called like a reverse empath?
I don't know what it's called.
Because you know how like an empath, it's like the ability to pick up on everyone else around you, but
Yeah.
the reverse is that you're putting off such a strong signal that even people that don't know about this stuff will pick up on what you're feeling or what you're putting down.
Good point, Jasmine. Really good point.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was called, but yeah,
like
it's
teleempathic
usual.
instead of it's like teleempathic. I don't know what the real word is for it. Somebody in chat might be able to come up with it. But I see what you're saying, Jazz. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's happened to me, like especially like if I feel if I'm not my usual go happy go lucky smiling self, and I'm just like I've had to deal with like pretty strong pain, and I'm the type of person that if you didn't hurt me, I don't like to lash out, because being around animals, if you're upset and you lash out, and even though it's not their fault, they still get affected by it. So like if you like, slam the door, all of a sudden all the cats scurry around, and you're just like, oh, like my bad, like you know. So I try to be very aware not to lash out at those who don't deserve it.
Right.
And so when I have a lot of pain, immediately the people around me are like, what's wrong with Jasmine? What's wrong with her? What is she doing? Like, why is she over there? What's going on? And I'm just like, I feel like a chameleon sometimes, because like
Mhm.
I feels like
Mhm.
like I just change color and
You're
people
managing it.
look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. You're
Have you
managing
noticed
it.
that, you notice when children will act out if the adults are having arguments and fights, then the children will act out and start punching each other. My animals will do that.
Yeah, animals do
It's
that too.
just
My
stress.
cat will attack.
It's just
Yeah,
stress. Yeah,
mhm.
it's how you deal with the stress. Yeah.
If they see me and Frank fight, or me and somebody else get into an art, which we don't anymore, I'm happy to. But when we were, the animals would act up. The cat would go after the dog. The dog would snap. Sassy would come down to the bottom of her cage and try to bite the dog's tail, and that they were just all upset all the time. Now they're all happy,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
anyway,
So let's get to Grandpa Brian on this question. What spiritual practices best enable you to maintain control of your conscious mind, Brian? You're
You're on mute,
muted.
bub.
GB, you're on mute.
He's got it.
Mutation.
There he
there you
goes.
go.
Yeah, it's starting to rain here, so I didn't want to drown people out.
Okay.
Meditation,
Mm-hmm.
uh, doing remote healing, the people that I surround myself with, and the people that I socialize on media with. I don't try to socialize with anybody that I know that's going to bring down my vibration. I always try to socialize with people I know that's going to help me raise my vibration, help me raise my conscious level. Same way with the interaction with people physically. I try to physically interact with people that's going to raise my conscious level, raise my spiritual level, like our group.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, that
just
like
like meeting
attracts
with you
like.
all here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
It's helping raise my conscious level just being here
Mm-hmm.
with all of you right now. So
Absolutely.
these are the
Like-minded
practices that I
individuals.
do. I try to stay away from those who aggravate me, want to bring my conscious level down to where, my mind's cluttered because I'm upset because of something they did or something they
Mm-hmm.
said. I try to stay away from those people. I know sometimes I have to deal with those people, but then when I do, I know, okay, it's their energy. Get it away from you. Let them
Mm-hmm.
say what they have to say. Don't think one way or another about it. Just let it go and be yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beloved Abstract has a little slight on mirror work. I give
Hmm.
myself the evil eye in the mirror to scare myself straight. It works. I love
Hmm.
that.
Hey, man.
That's so cool.
there,
Didn't
you
know
know,
not
there
the
is
only
some,
one.
there is something to be said for that, BA,
Oh,
because
it's cute.
because it really does work. I have done that deliberately, just to see. I mean, I do mirror work, but I'll go in there and I'll look at myself and I'll look into my eyes and I'll go, "Ooh, I don't like what I'm seeing right now. Why is that?" And I'll find out it's because oh, it was that stupid letter I just opened. It triggered me, didn't it? I was trying to pretend like it didn't, but I have to be honest with myself. So sometimes when you look at your own soul essence in the mirror, you can see truths about how you really feel about something, or who you really are at that moment. And it's a
Hmm.
good opportunity because it lets me do an attitude adjustment.
Mm-hmm. Delabor, did you answer that question? Did
Not
you get
yet.
the?
No.
All right. Let's hear it, bro.
Well, it's kind of traditional, I would say. My spiritual practices, I got a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
Asceticism,
Okay.
asceticism. It's basic things like not living above your means, uh, having a very humble diet. I got
Mm-hmm.
rid of my fridge. Um, I eat a very
Wow.
simple diet. Then there's
Wow.
practices like brahmacharya, right? Ritual cleansing, and that extends to all aspects of your body. Like I don't use anything artificial. I don't use shampoo. I don't use toothpaste. I don't eat anything artificial, nothing processed, if at all possible. And just live a clean life, no chemicals. I take lots of vitamins. I do my ritual every midnight. It includes garlic, vitamins, ormus, colloidal silver. The colloidal silver interacts with the microtubules in each one of your cells, and it's been shown that that's like the smallest individual level of consciousness within your human body. And then, of course, that ties in with like mental practices, like what Sophia mentioned, setting a goal, putting in the effort, putting in the action, and then just divesting yourself of the result. And in a practical scenario, that translates to something as simple and binary, like let's say trading a particular security. If you see that a particular security is trading between say 290 and 310, right? And it goes between 290 and 310 6 times a year, right? So it's real simple. You put in a market order at 290 to buy, and then as soon as it executes, you put in a market order to sell at 310, and you let it out of your mind, and you just check it 6 times a year to make sure it's executed. You do that for your whole portfolio. It's as simple as that, and you don't succumb to the tendency to like ride the wave where, okay, well,
Right.
that given security is now going at 600. It's like, oh, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it. It's going to go up to 1200, and before you know it, it's down to 50, and then it's delisted. Then it's
Ride
delisted.
the wave.
And that's
Yep.
that's why 90
Oh shit.
95% of all retail clients, brokerage clients, lose money, right? Because they succumb to the emotion instead
Mm-hmm.
of just setting their intention, like Sophia
Let it
said,
ride.
and
Let it
following
ride.
through on it, and then just let it
Mm-hmm.
run.
I
Most
totally agree
people,
with
most
that.
people can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other spiritual practice is it's just like Grandpa Brian mentioned, like surround yourself with the right people and all that. But it also pick your fights, right, or pick your
Yeah.
struggles wisely. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to go enter a weightlifting competition, when I can't even lift 40 pounds. Forget
Yeah.
it. No. Instead, I'm gonna enter a different kind of competition, right? That doesn't
Who can
involve
eat the most
weightlifting.
garlic?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. But pick the battles that you'll win, right?
Yeah.
And usually, like a lot of these unresolved emotional conflicts are from situations where you were not the winner, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
know that there's a chance that you're not going to win, like a fight against a crazy neighbor or whatever. Just don't engage with them and don't even think about them.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you don't think
Yep.
about something, sooner or later it's just going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Jasmine had her hand up there.
Go ahead,
Lori.
Jasmine. Yep.
So I just wanted to give my 2 cents on the question. I think that it all depends on how well you know yourself. So
Mhm.
it's going to change these spiritual practices or being mindful are all going to change and develop as you change and develop.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
um so right now I think what the way I do it is as someone who's learning emotions and unprogramming all of the previous trauma and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I was wicked cool at controlling myself and having willpower to the max, right? But the problem with that, and it got me through my struggles and made me survive because it was in survival mode. So like all of these instances of where I'm like, well, I can't, like, I didn't really allow my emotions to dictate what I do or what my life would be. I chose it and I forced it to happen. But now that I am not in survival mode anymore, if I keep continually living in the same practices, it hurts my body. And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Right.
funny how like our guides kind of like help us figure out these new practices or these new defaults, if you want to see it that way,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not going to be the same all the time. And
Mhm.
the only way you're going to learn these other things is by being open-minded and experiencing new things and meeting people like you guys that, we can share tidbits and things like that of like, oh, well, this worked for me and this is how I did it. And
Mm.
but at the end of the day, it's our own responsibility to do the research, to do the digging and actually practice
Yeah.
or put in the work to
Well
see what
said.
actually helps you.
Yep.
Mhm.
Nailed
I
it.
think it's more
Absolutely.
about staying on track and being grounded and being
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
Balanced.
Yeah, that's
yes.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I always tell
Well
people
said, Jasmine.
one of the best things you can do for your life is to actually have an animal friend, like Grandpa Brian has Luna, his dog, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what really exposes that deep divide between like your ideal of what the world should be, or what your ideal emotional state and your real emotional state, right?
Mhm.
Like when you first pick up that rabbit or that animal, you feel that overwhelming love when he licks your face. It's like almost painful at first, right? It's almost like overwhelming, and
Mhm.
then you settle down kind of, and it's just, it brings you into a different state of consciousness that's very therapeutic, and you
Mhm.
need that.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Go ahead, Teresa. You have a
I'd like
comment?
to answer this question from
Sure.
Loretta.
Okay.
Why do we only seem, I want to answer this. Why do we only seem to bring trauma with us? Is joy or ecstasy such a lesser emotion? Um,
You go,
I've
Teresa.
asked myself that question
Yeah.
many, many times, and
Mhm.
what I've come to learn for me is that joy and ecstasy, it's not that it's a lesser emotion, it's a very high vibrational level. It's as closest to source energy, life force as you can get to.
Yep.
And so a lot of times it's so bright that we need to see the traumas and the dramas and the darkness to offset it so that we can see what it is we want or don't want. So it seems like we don't experience it as much because we're focusing on the things that we need to be able to see and do it. A lot of that involves shadow work. So we come here with a plan to experience certain things so that we can see the contrasts, and that way we can expand and grow. And Sophia, do you have a better way of saying that?
You're. It's all.
Mhm.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
Nick
Absolutely.
Nick's got a
Yeah.
comment here. Go ahead, Nick.
So the way I see it is, why are you choosing to hold on to the more negative side of things rather than the positive ones? And like Teresa
Programming.
said, that has some shadow work that needs resolved to figure that out, because it's a choice at the end
Yeah.
of the day. Why are, it's a lot of people, why are you constantly holding on to the worst case scenario when that's not the scenario you want?
Well, I'll
It
tell you
makes
why,
no
because
sense.
that's where you learn the most. That's where
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
learn the most. It's like
Mhm.
the old saying, business happens
Yeah.
when a man with money meets a man with experience. The man with the experience gets the
Yeah.
money, the man with the money gets the
Yes.
experience.
Yeah.
Yes,
Or
yes,
like how
yes.
Sophia said prior, all battles are either won or lost in the mind. So if you're gonna
Mm.
subject yourself to that torment, that's a
Mm.
personal choice, in my opinion.
And
I'm
it's
not
doing
saying,
something for you.
yeah, I'm not flat
Yeah.
out saying
It's
Yeah.
ignore it.
serving you. It's
Yeah,
serving you in one
yeah,
way or another.
yeah. I'm not saying to
Mhm.
flat out ignore it or pretend it's not there, stuff like that. I'm
Mhm.
saying choose the choices that'll get you to where you want to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
I think
Nice, Nick.
from what Loretta was saying, because I've had this epiphany or this thought before, like especially in grade school.
Mhm.
I used to be like an honor student, just like I used to get A's. But then one time I started like slacking off because I'm not really one to do my homework. I would just do it in class, like home time was my time. Like I even saw that like as a
Yeah.
kid, you know.
Yeah, that's how I
So
felt.
I right, it's just like no,
Home is
like I'm not
home. School is
exactly.
school. Why do I have to take homework home?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, "No, I'm not doing that." And,
Mhm.
so I ended up getting a B in the class instead of an A, and then my sister and my mom were like, "Oh, well, B is better. You better do better next time, right?" And I'm like, "That sounds stupid." And then I was like,
Mhm.
"Alright, so why don't I get a C and see if you're happy with a B then?" So,
Yeah, that's the logic right there. I love that.
but that point is, for some reason, there seems to be a lasting hold, even through the generations, through one traumatic experience. it will trickle on through the generations.
Can.
But it takes almost like 10 or 15, like it takes so much more positive experiences to leave a lasting impression. At least that's the way it feels, you know what I mean? And like on a grand scale of things, it just feels like unbalanced. Like why does it like, you know, one bad sale experience and all of a sudden like your epiphany or your what's that word? Paradigm is situated like this, and then from there off it's closed minded, and then you have to leave it on to the next generations to dig it up and undo it.
Well, this is interesting because Loretta Enigma is asking the question: is ancestral trauma a choice? And what would you say to that?
So I would say sort of it is, because we all came with a plan. We all decided on what name we picked, what birthday we had, what gifts we had, why we decided to reincarnate. Like we all just picked that. You know what I mean? I know like as a teenager, I'd be like, I didn't decide to be born. You made me
Yeah,
here. And it's
I
like,
know.
well, no, I guess not.
Mhm.
So I guess the real question is, how much are you going to keep feeding that toxicity? How much are you going to keep feeding into that same story? How
Tell
much are
it.
you going to allow the past to control your future, kind of
And
thing?
that's
Right.
And
that
then
karmic
once,
clearing.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and once you start asking those questions, then it starts to change. But it reminds me of a Pay It Forward. Have you guys ever seen that movie?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's so
Yes.
cute. I love that
Yeah.
movie. It makes me
It's
cry every
great.
time. But it's just like, how are you going to allow it? It goes back to the same thing that Sophia was saying earlier. Like, are you going to allow the good and the joy to be as meaningful as trauma?
Got it. Nailed it. I want more.
Also, don't forget one thing, that American culture glorifies victimhood, right?
Yes, they do.
So
Oh, the whole
they
Yep.
world
do.
does. Shit, not
Yeah,
just America.
yeah, exactly. Except that, in my country, victimhood is seen as weak, as bad, right? You don't want to portray yourself as a victim. Nobody, nobody that I know does, really.
I think it takes, like how Teresa was saying earlier, we're all born our worst critics, right? But it takes, you have to also be your own best friend too. So
Yes.
it
Yes.
you
You
have
have to
to
see
be.
the love you are.
And the potential that you already have, you just haven't
Hmm.
tapped into it yet.
You know
Exactly.
Yeah.
that saying, you are what you create, or you are what you think you are, or you are what you create?
Hmm.
Okay, so we created something. We got something really cool from it from a really long time. And then it wasn't cool anymore. And now we're on to something else. But it's constantly, I've redesigned myself. I've recreated myself at least 3 times in this life. I'm 63. And I actually stopped doing something that I had done for 30 years
Hmm.
completely and picked up something different. I have redefined who I am and what I want to do many, many times over. Can you imagine doing that on a quantum level in different realities? You're constantly, that's what this
Actually,
is
you've been
about.
doing it for a very long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, for a very, very long time.
you become what you focus on.
Yep.
Right. So it's
If
where
you
you shift
focus,
that, yes.
yeah, if you focused on crap, then your life is going to be pretty much crap.
Garbage in, garbage
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
No
but if
doubt
you
about it.
evaluate yourself, if you go, okay, lessons fucking learned. Excuse
Hmm.
me, freaking
Ooh,
learned.
drop the
Okay?
F-bomb.
So I know, I'm sorry. I don't usually,
Mm-mm.
but
It's
you're like,
passion. It's
it's
passion.
learned. It's learned. So it's like, okay, release it now. Let's go on to something else. So now it's like I'm not mad anymore at the universe, God, or my concept of God, or the universe, or my parents, or my friend. I'm not mad at people anymore because we all chose to participate, no matter how horrific. We chose it. We got
Yep.
through it, and
Yep.
What
now
it's like
we
Laurie
are
said.
uniquely different. We're
Hmm.
changed.
Go ahead,
It's
What,
Jasmine.
Jasmine?
it's like Laurie said. It's like emotion is just as powerful as our physical, right? and it should be as easy. Releasing an emotion should be as easy as releasing a pen, right?
Right.
But somehow we get stuck in these
Right.
loops, right? So it brings me back to like what you were saying, like think you can, think you can't, either way you're right. But what happens if you can't think it? You know what I mean? That's when I think you need to be exposed, or like, a little more open-minded. Because what happens if you've never even thought of these things? You know what I mean? Like if your whole world was this one way, what is it going to take for you to actually embrace a different situation, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it
Your
does.
eyes
It
are
really
open or
does.
your heart's broken.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
Yep.
provokes change.
Yeah.
yeah.
Fascinating discussion, everyone. Well, listen, we're
Yep.
into almost 2 hours already.
Oh, no.
Boy, it really went by fast, didn't
Yeah,
it?
it did.
Yeah.
So I would
Yep.
like to just do some quick final thoughts, if we could. And Teresa, let's start with you on final thoughts, and we'll move down the panel here.
Just, we all experience consciousness in a different way because we're all unique, even though we have the same fundamental underlying design or construct as spiritual beings living in a physical condition or living in a physical body. That's the same. But we're one in our desires and journeys to become something that's meaningful. Because the question that the creation is always asking is, why are we creating and why are we keep doing this? And the answer is because we love it. We wouldn't be doing it if we didn't love it. And it might not seem like love because not everything is sunshine and roses. But as long as you keep into your mind that what's really happening here is an evolution on an epic scale of everything that you are, ever have been, and ever could be. Just be your true, authentic self at any given moment because it's going to change. Your underlying essence, spirit essence, isn't. It's pure love and light. But the bottom line is you'll go through different flavors of your experiences in multi dimensions, and just accept yourself for who you are in those creations because they're meant for a purpose. So don't be so hard on yourself. Lighten up, enjoy it a little bit. You're going to wake up on the other side eventually. You're going to go, holy crap, what a ride.
Right?
You know? So it can be as tormentuous to you as, tormenting to you as you want it to be in this reality, or you can learn how to tap into your own self and up your vibe. Experiment. Use it as an experiment. Use life as an experiment and have fun. Create some fun stuff for yourself.
Enjoy the ride. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well said. How about you, Sophia? Final thoughts tonight, my dear?
Sure, make me follow a Toastmaster. Thanks, Laurie.
You're your own Toastmaster there.
But this is true. This is true. But Teresa has a way with closing statements, and I resonated with every bit of what she just said, which leaves me the luxury to agree. And kind of what a lot of people in the chat were saying is waking up, being grateful that every day, at least in my reality, I'm free to make decisions. I'm free to have a hand in the experience that I have every day. And I'm grateful for the people that are in my life, the privilege to give readings, the privilege to get close to people. We're all works in progress. We're all experiments, and we're all the directors in our own play. It's I'm just happy to be here.
We're happy
I
you're here too,
survived
Sophia.
myself and to evolve because this world is can be, very, very dark. And I'm glad I was able, with the help of my guides, to be part of the solution.
We're
Because
glad
once
too.
upon a time, that was not the case.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. Nick and Jasmine, final thoughts there, you two? We can start with Jasmine if you'd like.
Okay. I just want to say thank you
You're
because
so welcome.
I really do enjoy these things because it helps to physically change the mindset. You know what I mean? Like, especially when we have these kind of discussions or these kind of like panels, like it makes me aware that it's more than just ourselves. Everything starts with ourselves, but at the end of the day, it's so that way we can all be in harmony together. So
Mm-hmm.
I just like how this kind of helps everyone in
Mm-hmm.
a small way, but like it's like a wave. You know what I mean? It'll start small and it'll build its own
Mm-hmm.
momentum. So
A collective experience.
yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. How about you, Nick? Final thoughts for tonight? And thank you both for being here. We really appreciate your input.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah,
glad you could join
Yeah.
us.
Space to be able to talk here.
Yeah.
So I really agree with what Teresa, Sophia, and Jasmine said. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's this.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta make it
Yeah.
treat you nicer. Mindset's everything. Mindset's
Mm-hmm.
everything. If you don't like the way your life is going, mindset's everything. If you think you don't exist, you're disassociating or something like that. Well, first off, the fact that you're asking who, when, why, where, that's already proof enough that
Mm-hmm.
you have consciousness and that you're existing and you're not an animatronic. You're here having a human experience. So own
Yeah.
it. Own it. Have fun. Have fun like
Mm-hmm.
Teresa said. Have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Enjoy
as simple
yourself.
as that.
Enjoy life.
And yeah, you got to figure out what it is you truly want. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes what you want, you have to let go of certain things to let that in.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. How about you, Dalibor? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. Basically, especially with what Mary Wynn's commented there.
Mm-hmm. That was
Gratitude
nice.
is really important because a lot of us don't realize just how privileged we all are. If you live in one of the G7 nations, right, you're already in the top 1%. You're already living a higher standard of life than Herbert Hoover lived,
Yeah.
right?
Ooh.
or
Yeah.
Charlemagne. So be grateful for what you have in your life, despite the
Yes.
fact
Right.
that it might not be everything that you think you want, but do you really want it, right?
Right.
And again, uh, your life goes where your consciousness goes. If you focus on crap, you're going to get crap. If you
Mm-hmm.
focus on the things you really want, you're going to get more of them. If you
Mm-hmm.
focus on problems, you're going to get more problems to solve, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus
Yep.
on trauma, you're going to meet more people with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
Track them like flies.
yeah,
Yeah.
because like attracts like. That's the
Misery
uh,
loves company.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's those feeders, what some people call the archons. They're out there feeding.
Yeah,
Bottom
exactly.
suckers.
Yeah, parasitic, discarnate beings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah.
All right, Grandpa Brian, how about you?
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
Be the true, authentic self that you're meant to be.
Yeah.
You have a choice. You have free will. You have the choice
Yep.
to raise that vibration, raise your spirit, raise your consciousness, as well as you can digress. The choice is up to yours, up to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever way you want to go, if you want to digress, go ahead and digress. That is your free will.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to excel and raise your level of consciousness, then focus your energy towards that, raising that level and that consciousness.
Perfect. I love that. And I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. Everyone in chat, thank you so much for participating, coming here every week and listening to us go on
Yeah.
about these kinds of metaphysical things. But I just want to leave everyone with: remember, anything is possible. Consciousness is an infinite experience, and we are
Mm-hmm.
always all one.
Yes.
So until next week, you guys, we'll see you then. Watch for the trailer for next week. All our love and affection for you. Much love to all. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and be your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
Later.
Peace.
Laters.